You know that whole quiet luxury thing we see everywhere? The huge estates, the clothes that just fit perfectly? You know the look. It all just screams freedom, right? A life where you don't have a single worry. But what if that's not the whole picture? Today, we are going to pull back the curtain on what's been called the golden cage of old money.
I mean, think about the dream. It's a life of just endless choices. Waking up one day and deciding to fly to Paris, just because you can. Pursuing any hobby, any passion, without ever looking at a price tag. It's the ultimate fantasy, right? A life with absolutely no limits.
But here's the crazy paradox at the very heart of these dynasties. What if, for the kids born into all of this, the one thing they don't actually get is the very freedom we all imagine they have? What if their life is less of an open field and more of a beautiful, gilded cage?
See, wealth that lasts for generations, that doesn't just happen by luck. Nope, it's carefully preserved through a very specific and often totally invisible set of sacrifices. It really comes down to a trade-off. Your freedom to forge your own path versus your duty to keep the family legacy alive. So what exactly is the price of this legacy? Well, in this explainer, we're going to break down 5 huge sacrifices that heirs often have to make. We'll look at giving up your own path, losing your personal freedom, and even what happens when you might have to sacrifice a piece of your very soul for the family name. So here they are, the 5 big trade-offs we're going to explore. You sacrifice your own ambitions, your ability to be spontaneous, your right to trust people, your freedom to love who you want, and in the end, maybe even your own self.
All right, let's dive into the first one. And honestly, this one's maybe the biggest. Your own path. Most of us grow up hearing, follow your passion, right? Well, for old money, the motto is more like, follow your duty.
This slide just lays it all out perfectly. For most of us, life is like a blank canvas. We get to paint our own story, and we decide what success looks like. But for an heir, their life is like a book that's already been written, and they're just the next chapter. A career isn't about self-expression, it's a duty. And success is just making sure you're not the one who loses everything.
And this quote it nails it. Think about it. A kid who's a born poet might have to spend 60 hours a week in a boardroom, not because they want to, but because the family business needs a CEO. It's this quiet death of a personal dream.
Okay, let's get into the next 2 sacrifices, which are really, really connected. These are all about losing the freedoms that kind of define being young, the freedom to mess up, and the freedom to just trust people without a second thought. You remember your messy phase, right? Come on, we all had one. A time to make dumb mistakes and hopefully learn from them. Well, for an heir, there is no messy phase. Their last name is basically a brand, and one little screw-up can damage a reputation that took 100 years to build. So life becomes this performance of being perfect all the time. And that leads directly to the next sacrifice, which often starts with something called the talk. And no, not that talk. This talk is all about ulterior motives. From a really young age, these kids are taught to be suspicious of, well, everyone. To always be asking, do they like me for me or for my bank account? So the takeaway here is, this creates this deep, constant skepticism. You sacrifice the ability to just make friends easily because you're always on guard. I mean, can you imagine? It's an incredibly lonely way to go through life, and it just strips away that beautiful innocence of human connection. All right, now we're getting into the final 2 sacrifices. And these cut right to the core of a person's identity. We're talking about the freedom to love who you choose and the freedom to just be yourself, totally separate from your family's history.
So most of us are taught to marry for love, right? To find that spark. But in the world of old money, marriage often feels more like a strategic alliance. It's about finding a partner who gets the rules of the game, someone who won't rock the boat. The goal isn't just about your personal happiness. It's about making sure the family legacy survives.
And finally, we come to the ultimate sacrifice, the freedom to just be you. Most of us, if we want, can pack up, move to a new city, and totally reinvent ourselves. But an heir, they are chained to their family's past. They're not really the owners of their own lives. They're more like custodians, carrying the weight of generations on their shoulders.
So when you put all these sacrifices together, it all boils down to one massive conflict. It's a huge philosophical question, really, about what childhood is even for. Is the goal to build an individual, or is it to build an institution?
This is the role they are raised, from birth to fill, the steward. Think about that. You're not the main character in your own story. You're a placeholder in a long line of portraits. Your job is to live for the people who came before you and for the people who will come long after you're gone.
And this really sums up the whole thing. Modern parenting is pretty much all about raising a happy, free-thinking person. But for old money families, the goal is totally different. It's to create a durable, lasting institution. The focus isn't on the child's happiness right now. It's on the survival of the family, forever.
Look, it's easy to see the mansions and the private jets and just think privilege. Of course. But when you really understand the weight of that crown, the constant pressure, the feeling of being watched, and this profound lack of real choice, it makes you wonder. So I'll leave you with this question. If you had to make that trade, all the money in the world in exchange for the freedom to truly be yourself, what would you choose?